operating costs for the bureaucracy. I believe we should go back to the system we had I think many know, but just for clarity, the Department of Education was created in the 1970s. This hasn't been with us for a long period of time. It was the 1970s. And you gotta ask the hard question. How's that worked out for us? Do you think education is better or worse than it was in the 1970s? This is a fair question to ask. And, you know, what the elements of the Department of Education, after a rigorous review that are found to be necessary, can be consolidated. We don't need a full department. In the pre-1975 period, we had the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. And what I'm suggesting to you is that what the Congress needs to show leadership is look across the federal government in areas that we can consolidate and downsize, and we need to do it. So that's the second piece. Look at the Department of Energy. You know, the Department of Energy was created in the 1970s to get us off foreign oil. That didn't work out too well. So, you know, I think we can consolidate there too. And, you know, it's very possible we can move some of those functions and we can consolidate it into the Department of the Interior. But the larger point is this, is that we should be finding ways to downsize our federal government because we are overstructured. We're simply overstructured. And some of you may have seen the story in the Washington Post about, I lost track of time, 2 or 3 months ago, but it was about the intelligence agencies. Did anybody see that? It's on the front page of the Washington Post. This is worth looking up and Googling. It was Dana Priest was one of the authors. And she is a phenomenal reporter. And she cataloged and outlined all the various disparate intelligence agencies that are everywhere throughout Washington, D.C. I will tell you that it is unbelievable. What we need to do is we need to consolidate that. We can add by subtraction. Think about in your own life how many times you've been in a group dynamic where it is so large and intractable that you'll have a hard time coming to problem definition, much less coming up with a resolution to the problem. And that is part of our problem with our government right now. Not to mention all the commissions. You could go to the internet and take a look at that. So what we need to do is we need to find ways that we can bring our government in line with the fact that we're spending too much. I think we can save a lot of money through consolidation. These are the ways that we're going to bring ourselves in line with the balanced budget.
Question number 2. As a son of an immigrant, legal immigrant, my parents came from Greece and Ellis Island, came here legally. I'm concerned about a serious illegal, I repeat, illegal, I don't want to be misquoted, immigration problem that we have in our southern borders. The federal government is now suing Arizona over its laws to protect its citizens from illegal immigrants. What do you recommend we do to deal with our border problem and illegal immigration?
Well, what we need to do is to secure our borders. Now, in places in our country where we have a natural obstacle, St. Lawrence Seaway, for example, you know, all we need to do there is have a customs, border agents, and we can secure our borders. In places where we don't have a natural obstacle, we're going to have to create one. So in places like, for example, in Arizona, we're going to have to construct an obstacle. But anybody here, all our veterans in here know that no obstacle can go unobserved. You have to have surveillance of your obstacle. So, you know, what we need in addition to an obstacle is you need to have technical and human means to surveil the border. So these are the ways that we're going to ensure that we secure our borders. Incidentally, let me welcome you. I know Mr. Murphy couldn't be here tonight, but he did send his tracker. So you might want you to welcome right here. I gotta tell you.
I don't work for Murphy, sir.
And there's something you should know about this too. You know, my opponent, he supports big government at every turn. The tax, borrow, and spend policies of Speaker Pelosi, he's with her at every step. He calls himself a fiscal conservative, but he hasn't found a tax, borrow, and spend bill he doesn't like. And on top of that, and he sends this tracker everywhere. And you know, here's the thing about it. I was in Dutchess County last week, and I was doing meet and greet. We went into private property, owners of businesses, and he followed in, and I'm talking to small business owners. He didn't even ask whether or not he could do this. He was taping. Somebody who has no respect for privacy and believes in big government. You think you can trust them with your guns? This is you know, I talk to people, you know, and, you know, ask them, and occasionally I'll ask them how their family's doing. So, you know, Mr. Murphy's getting to listen to all that. So, I mean, that's what we deal with. I mean, I'll tell you right now, I don't do that. I find that unseemly. I don't send a guy around to follow Mr. Murphy. I just think that's wrong. I think that's wrong.
Thank you very much. This is my last question. Gotta be prepared, Jim. Sometimes people don't want to ask questions. I wanted to ask 3 questions, and I'm going to do it. As a veteran, I'm asking this question. What is your opinion of the war in Iraq and Afghanistan and Iran's nuclear threat to the world?
Okay. All right. With regard to Iraq.
No.
Okay.
Tracker, you're not. I am a tracker.
All right, we're going to have constructive dialogue too. Because I'll tell you what we need to do is preserve the peace. And we got to do it in a way that's responsible. You know, the thing on Iraq, you know, I think you guys know I served multiple tours there. And I served there. And, you know, I was there when it was hard and unpopular. I thank God I live in a country that had the stomach, had the intestinal fortitude to see that through.
I'm happy to clarify.
Look, regardless of what you thought about the decision of 2002, 2003, you know, when a country goes to war, when a country like ours goes to war, we cannot lose. We can't lose. So much of our security is based on deterrence. And if we make a decision to do what we did, we need to resource it. This is why I was critical of the early years of the war effort, because we made this decision. And I think the decision-making processes did not allow for our decision-makers to make, I think, the right calls as far as having our resources there. That's why I supported the surge in 2007, because it was critically important that we stabilize that country before we begin to reposition. Now, you look at 2010. We're in a position now to start coming home in big numbers. We're down below 50,000 now. The height was 170,000 soldiers. And that country's going to stabilize. It's not going to be a Jeffersonian democracy. Don't expect it to be like New England or New York. But you know what? It's going to be stable, and it's going to be an ally. Does that mean they're going to do everything we ask them to do? No. They're a sovereign nation, and they're going to make decisions based on their best interests. But having traveled throughout that region, I will tell you, I think it's going to be more stable than some of its neighbors nearby. Now, what about Afghanistan? Okay, Afghanistan has some similarities and some dissimilarities. But you know what? President Obama, this was a tough call for him last year. You look at his base. His base did not want him to surge. He got no points with them for what he did. And he made the right call. he made the right call because at that point, the security situation in Afghanistan had deteriorated. And again, we don't want to be in a situation where that country falls back into chaos and Al-Qaeda gets a safe haven and has a position to attack us. Now, at the same time, we don't want to be in a situation where we don't follow through on our commitments, because that hurts our deterrence worldwide. So I supported the surge in Afghanistan, but I've also been outspoken. And some of you may have seen my op-ed piece that was in the New York Post in late June. I think we need to hustle on this. We cannot afford to spend another 9 years in Afghanistan. We cannot do that, you know? And so what I said in the op-ed piece is we need to focus on training the Afghan security forces, partnering with them down to company level, developing their professionalization, helping them in their counterinsurgency effort against the Taliban. And if we focus on training the Afghan security forces, based on my experience, I think that we can begin to reposition within a year to year and a half. General Petraeus is over there. He had a good method. I fought under him in Iraq. I believe in his leadership. I think we need to stick this one through. I'm asking for your patience. I know that's not a popular thing to support right now, but I'm asking you to hang in there for another year to year and a half so that we can train those Afghan security forces and we can reposition. Reposition because the enemy remains Al-Qaeda. And what happened last December on the 25th, on Christmas Day, when there was a radicalized youth that got on an aircraft and flew from Africa to Europe and then intended to attack us, he was only foiled by an individual. Your national security system failed you again. That was a brave individual that started. He was on fire when he was put out by one of the individuals on the aircraft. So my point to you is that Al-Qaeda, they're going to keep coming. They try to hit us in Times Square as well. They're committed to bringing down our way of life. And as we finish up in Afghanistan, I believe what we need to do is, it's not too late to do this right. We should declare war on our enemy. We should organize. We should organize for this action, and we should work in concert with allies. You're going to find that nearly every country in the world will work with us, because Al-Qaeda hit London, it hit Madrid, it hit Bali, it attempted on Russia. Listen, the radicalized Islam of Al-Qaeda wants to take down all of civilization, so that's something that the world shares with us. So as we reposition out of Afghanistan, let's recognize the fact that we have so much more in common with the world than we do apart when it comes to that. Now that brings me to Iran. Because the thing that we need to do on Iran, I think that there's two major points here. The first one is to recognize that a way to leverage and to make our sanctions and our diplomacy more effective is to strengthen our relationship with Israel. Israel is our partner.